share ideas to help families tackle major issues. I'm your host, Regina DeMeo, and with me today is Michele Conley, who founded Living in Pink about 10 years ago.
Yes.
Thanks so much for being here, Michele.
Thank you for having me.
So I love your organization. I've been to a couple of events, and so I just want to ask you, what was the what was the original idea to found this group?
Well, I'm a breast cancer survivor. I've actually had breast cancer twice.
Wow.
And in between my two diagnoses, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer as well. So when she was diagnosed, that was the time that I really thought I need to do something to try and help make a difference and raise funds for research. Because watching her go through everything really made me so sad that she had to now endure all that emotional and physical pain that I had to go through.
Makes sense. But so, when you founded this organization, it was just you originally?
No, I had spoken to a couple friends about holding a luncheon and doing a fundraiser for breast cancer. So as soon as I started talking about it, all of a sudden I had 15 friends that wanted to help, who were all talented, creative, moms, friends, and business people. So together I came up with the name Living in Pink because I thought I really needed to come up with a positive name that was a good reflection of me and something that people would look to and say, okay, well, that's all about living.
Right.
And that's where the name came from. Okay. And then with talking with several friends, we came up with the idea to have this luncheon. And at the luncheon, we do a boutique where they sell all types of jewelry, and they give us a percentage of the proceeds from the boutique. And then we have a speaker at the luncheon, and then we typically honor a local physician who has a lot to do with breast cancer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's been fabulous meeting all these different people that we've honored. And we even had Elizabeth Edwards one year, just because she was such a great spokesperson for the disease and a fabulous role model as well.
Yeah, makes sense. And it's at the Fairmont?
Yes.
Is that where it is? How many people attend usually?
400 to 450.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's huge.
Yes, we've had a great following.
That's fantastic. And it's a 501c3?
Yes.
So people can make donations and write off the taxes?
Exactly.
Okay. And so, what is the day-to-day operations of your organization?
We do most of the planning. We'll start in January. So now our luncheon this year will be in November. It's going to be November 1st.
Okay.
So we'll start getting the sponsor letters out and then rediscussing any changes that we want to do for the luncheon. And a couple of other things that we started doing this year was we had a happy hour and just invited all of our following to come to a happy hour to do something fun. And it's been a real treat getting to know more people in the community who have either experienced breast cancer or their family has gone through it. And it seems the longer we go on, the more people we meet who have been touched by it.
Well, that brings up a good point, because I was going to ask you, do you know the stats? How many women are actually affected by this disease?
In 2012, 250,000 women were diagnosed with breast cancer.
Wow. In the U.S.?
Yes.
Okay. And, I don't really know all the details, but there's various stages. My mom had 0 to 1, and so she did not need chemo. She had radiation treatment, and thank God she's fine. But there are different levels, right?
Yes, stages 0 through 4, and 4, of course, being the most difficult and the largest tumor.
And so when somebody has a 4, would they then need a mastectomy?
It depends upon how invasive the tumor is, and then the surgeon and the chemotherapist together would decide on a treatment path for that person to take. For example, when I was diagnosed, they always did surgery first and chemo second. Now they're doing it in reverse. They're doing chemo first to try and shrink tumors and then do the surgery second, which is fascinating. It makes sense if you think about it, especially in a larger case.
Right. So, but here's my question, because I have not, thankfully, had this issue, but my understanding is chemo really takes a toll on you.
A big toll. Chemo is very difficult.
And then it compromises your immune system, right?
Absolutely.
And your energy level. Like, did you have to have chemo?
Yes.
Okay.
I had chemo for an 8-month period after surgery.
So you had the surgery first?
Correct.
Then the chemo?
Correct.
What was that like?
The surgery wasn't that bad because it was just a lumpectomy on the first diagnosis. The chemotherapy, when I was diagnosed, I was 35. And I knew no one.
Did you find it or the doctor found it?
The doctor, when I went for an annual physical. My OBGYN, who's a dear friend now, found it.
Wow.
And I went immediately, to see a surgeon who was a friend of his. And unfortunately, that one day, which turned out, to be such an amazing day when you think about how your day started and how your day ended up.
Right.
It started out wonderful on a beautiful sunny day, and it ended up that I had breast cancer. So it was just not what I was expecting.
Right.
From a typical...
And at that point, you were already a mother.
Yes, of 4.
4 kids. Wow.
Yes.
So, how do you even break the news to your spouse, to your children?
Well, it was interesting because I'm the type of mom that is very honest and upfront because I still am a very active mom. So I would always take my kids on bike rides, walks, go to the park. We were always out and about doing something, going on ski trips. And I knew that chemo would be tough, but I had no idea how tough it would be.
Right.
So I thought it would be better to be honest with them and tell them, listen, there's going to be days when I'm not going to be feeling that great, and I'm going to have to ask you for your help to help Mom, because my kids had never seen me sit or lay down on a sofa.
Right.
And from what I had read about chemo, that was probably going to be the case, that I would end up needing more rest and time to just recoup after the chemo treatments. So I was very honest and upfront with them and told them about it. And one of my hardest questions from one of my sons came from that conversation, because he said, well, Mom, you have cancer and you're going to go through chemo. Does that mean you're going to die? And I said, absolutely not. I said, this means Mom's going to do everything possible to fight to be here to raise you. I want to be here to raise you.
Right. What is the survival statistics, do you know?
It all depends upon the stage that the cancer's in, but it's 1 in 36 will die from breast cancer.
Wow.
So it is still a serious disease, although they've come a very long way.
Oh, yeah.
In early detection and treatment phases is completely different from the time that I was diagnosed. So it's really, really taking huge advances to save more lives, and the key thing is always early detection.
Right. So when you went through the chemo, did it really take a toll on your energy level? What was your life like during those 8 months?
It did take a toll on my energy level. I tried to keep up my exercise routine because I found that if I stayed on my routine, I felt better mentally and physically. So I was running at that time probably about 5 miles a day, and I had to cut it back to about 3 because I really just didn't have the energy to do it, to do the 5. And there were times where I just really had to say, okay, the chemo treatment's on Friday. I'm not going to feel well on Monday because it takes a couple of days before it actually hits you. Yeah.
Okay.
So you're fine because you take steroids for the treatment. So your body is fine during the treatment time, but it will affect you several days later. So those several days later, I tried to plan it when the kids were in school so that I could have my downtime while they were in school.
Okay, that makes sense. And did you go to the treatments by yourself, or did you have friends help out? Because I hear that it's really important to have people rallying around you.
Oh, absolutely. I was so fortunate. I didn't realize before having cancer how fortunate I was to have such a supportive family and network of friends. I don't think I could have done it without my family and without my friends. They were so incredibly wonderful and so incredibly supportive throughout the whole ordeal. It was just amazing. You don't realize how many people love you until you go through a situation like this. And, you know, everybody stepped up to the plate and rallied better than I could ever imagine. Because I didn't know anyone who had cancer or who'd been through chemo. So for me, it was all new. Everything was a new experience.
Right. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I'm here in D.C., and my mom, when she was going through this, was in New York, so I did not get to see the day-to-day, you know, repercussions of this disease. But I understand that her friends brought food for her. They drove her to the doctor's appointments. They were really helpful in being supportive for her.
Oh, that's fantastic, because that is the easiest way to heal.
Yeah.
And you have people surrounding you and people caring for you and doing things for you. And it's hard because I wasn't the type of person that was used to receiving help.
Right.
So in the beginning, I felt kind of bad that everyone was helping. But then, you know, after a couple of treatments, I thought, you know, they must really enjoy this because it's really helping me so much with the kids and my family. And it ended up being such a godsend.
And the kids handled it all well?
The kids were fantastic. One night, this really cute story, my daughter Brooke, I was really exhausted after a long day of doing things, going to work and being under treatments. And I said, you know, I am really exhausted. I think I have to go to bed early tonight. And she said, well, Mom, just make me a list. And she was 8 years old at the time. Make me a list of what you want me to do tonight, and I'll do everything for you.
Aww.
And she was 8 years old, and I thought, how sweet, you know, for her to be so wonderful during a time like that. Because sometimes kids, as you know, can be selfish. But she totally stepped up and said, you know, I'll do anything to help you.
Well, it's funny because, I mean, unfortunately, a lot of my clients in the divorce world, they wind up getting sick. And sometimes it is you know, the trigger, like the triggering event, whether it's a man that has prostate cancer or a woman that winds up with breast cancer. But it's this moment in the marriage where they really come to decide, you know, am I going to rally and be there for this person, or is this the final straw? I can't deal. I have to leave. And it really breaks my heart when I have those cases where you have a person who's very sick. They're going through a very difficult time, and now on top of that, they're losing their spouse. But it's phenomenal when I can see that in my collaborative cases, we've had a couple of people who've gotten very, very sick during that process. And unlike in litigation where you can't just hit pause. You can't say to the court, oh, I'll be back in 6 months when this person gets better. Sure. But in the collaborative cases, we're able to say, you know, this person really needs to focus on getting well, so we're just going to take a break. And we've paused to let that person recuperate, deal with their health issues, and then we come back to the table after.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
Yeah.
It's great to hear that, because you always think divorces are difficult and hard and horrible, but there's some cases that can be good in a case like that.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen a very generous side of people. I know people think that what I see every day is pretty nasty. Some of it is, but there is a really sweet side of humanity that I do get to see.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So we're going to take a little short break, and then we will be right back.
I'm Jeremy Call, and I made suction tires. Wait. I used a rivet gun to connect the suction cups, and then I just connected it to the tire. I got the idea from an octopus because of the suction cups, and I don't know.
Anything's possible. Keep thinking. Get started on your invention at inventnow.org.
Welcome back to Making It Last, where we share ideas to help families tackle major issues. I'm your host, Regina DeMeo, and with me today is Michele Conley of Living in Pink. Thanks so much for being here, Michele.
Sure.
So we're talking a lot about genetic testing, which, as you know, I'm really reluctant to do. I mean, the odds are I'm going to get cancer. I accept that. My mom's had breast cancer, my dad's had colon and melanoma, and my grandmother also had cancer behind the eye. So it's just a question of when, probably. But do you know of people that have actually done the test and taken measures ahead of time?
Yes. As a matter of fact, a very dear, close person, my sister, when my mom and I were both diagnosed, and I was diagnosed the second time, they recommended we do genetic testing. So, of course, we agreed, because of family members having daughters and having a sister. And they tested my sister at the same time. And this was about 7 or 8 years ago. And when they tested the three of us, they came up with a commonality. There's one common gene that the three of us have, but they didn't know what it was quite yet.
Okay.
They hadn't done enough research to know which BRAC1 or BRAC2, but they had a very, very strong feeling that this was one of the BRAC genes. And they recommended to my sister to have prophylactic bilateral mastectomies, which was a huge decision because she'd never had cancer, but my mom and I had both had cancer, and it took her a while to make that choice, to make that decision to have the surgery.
Right.
Because the surgeon said it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And she had young kids at the time, and I think it was a really tough decision. We had many conversations about it, and I said, you know what, just really take your time and think through this, because this is a lifetime decision that you're making to do prophylactic mastectomies, and you've got to be ready and willing to do it. You don't want to make a decision when you're really not ready yet.
What's the pro to doing it? That you're doing it at a time when you're healthy and you're strong and your immune system can, handle it? Is that the pro?
Yes, and also not allowing, if you're removing all the breast tissue, then the chances are less than 1% that you will actually get breast cancer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's a great way, if you have cancer in your family, breast cancer in your family, to be able to escape going through all of the trauma that goes along with a breast cancer diagnosis.
Right. So at the same time that they're taking the breast tissue out, are they able to do an implant or no? They
have a choice. And I did reconstruction right away, and so did my sister. Because if you allow the body to heal, then you have to go in for a second surgery to put in the implants and the expanders. So we were of the thought process that it's a lot easier to do one surgery and hope that everything works out well rather than healing and then going back in and doing another surgery.
Right. No, that makes total sense. And like with chemo, does everybody, I really don't know the answer to this, but does everybody have the same symptoms? Like, is everybody going to lose their hair?
It depends on the type of chemo that you do.
Oh.
The Cytoxin is the one that makes you lose your hair, and in probably 90% of breast cancer treatments with chemotherapy, you'll lose your hair. And that's kind of one of the hard things when you have kids. I didn't mind losing my hair, but to the kids it was strange.
Yeah. So your sister was able to avoid
that
altogether.
all of that. Yes.
Makes sense. And then after, like my mom only had to have radiation, not chemo. But then afterwards, they put her on this pill that she has to take for the next 3 years.
Tamoxifen.
Okay. So does that have any side effects?
I would say it does have one side effect in that it makes people a little bit cranky and depressed. And I remember that I switched back and forth. There's 3 drugs. One is Arimidex, one is tamoxifen, and one is raloxifene. And I used to switch back and forth because the symptoms were different with the different drugs. And I really didn't like the way the tamoxifen made you feel.
Right. So, that's something that I guess your whole family needs to be aware of, right?
Absolutely.
And I guess if you're working with other people, they may also want to be aware
of it.
Sure. Even when I want to have a cold or the flu, I'm not quite my normal cheerful self, so I can't imagine what it'd be like if you're battling something far more severe than that.
Sure.
Yeah. So what other resources would you recommend for people?
If you are the type of person that likes to do support groups, most hospitals, like Sibley has an incredible support group through their breast center.
Okay.
And I know Suburban Hospital as well has an amazing support group. So most of those hospitals, usually it's a nurse or a doctor that will lead it, and there will be families, there'll be patients, there'll be all types of survivors that attend these that can help you if you've never experienced anything like that before. I was so fortunate in my family being so supportive that I didn't go to a support group, but I know people that have had great results using support groups.
Well, I imagine it's a great way to check in and make sure that the process you're going through is normal. If you know that other people are experiencing the irritability or low energy or whatever it is, like when you feel more normal,
absolutely,
it helps. When
absolutely.
you feel like you're weird and not yourself, and there's no one else that can commiserate with you about this experience, I think that makes somebody feel very lonely.
Definitely. And that, I think, was the key to my survival and doing it in a pleasant way, was having people around all the time made me happier.
Right.
I had a bunch of girlfriends that would come and just watch movies with me during the day while the kids were at school. It was so much fun.
No, that's fantastic. So after you're done with your treatment, my understanding is you still are not cleared as cancer-free for 3 years. Am I right?
It's usually 3 to 5.
Okay.
And in my case, my second diagnosis came right at 5 years.
Wow.
And that's when I decided to do the bilateral mastectomies and a hysterectomy because of there being a link with breast cancer and ovarian cancer.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I did both of those surgeries at the same time.
That must have been incredible. So, was that hard to recover from?
It wasn't the easiest thing I've ever done, just because you had to be in the hospital for 5 days, and then recovery afterwards was probably about a month to 6 weeks of really doing nothing. You weren't supposed to pick anything up heavier than a newspaper. And then during that following year, you're doing the whole expander thing with the reconstruction. So you're going and you're having the expanders filled, so you feel like you're not even in your own body for about a year.
Well, it's like the reverse of like when I was getting over being pregnant, right? I felt like this milk machine, and I didn't feel like I was really myself until everything went back to normal and kind of tightened up again.
Exactly.
So it's the same.
Absolutely.
Wow. And I can't imagine. Like you seem to be so full of life and energy. And I mean, 6 weeks where you couldn't run and you're used to running 5 miles a day. I don't understand how you managed it all.
Well, I walked every day.
Okay.
I knew I couldn't run, so I tried to go out and walk. And I'd have friends come meet me, and we'd just do, a couple of miles walking. And that made me feel so much better just to get out and about.
Right. But like groceries, if you can't lift a newspaper, how are you going to get groceries?
That was really hard. And it was so wonderful that I had such nice friends, because a lot of them cooked meals. My mom stayed with me for 2 weeks after the surgery.
Oh, wow.
And did everything for me and the kids. And it just was, she's a godsend to do that for me.
Yeah. I didn't even think about the groceries until we were just talking.
Oh, absolutely. Just daily activities of feeding kids. And you couldn't empty the dishwasher. So imagine having 4 kids and not being able to empty the dishwasher.
Right. Yeah. And nothing would get done in my house. Wow. So were there any books that you found particularly useful?
I actually tried to read a couple of books, but I found that during that time it was all too new, and that once I got into the chapters that dealt with the treatments, I would have to put them away because they were like a bad movie.
Right.
A bad dream or a bad movie. So I never made it through one.
No, I think that the people that I have spoken to say that they have definitely focused on the positive, and it's all about doing fun things and staying, as close to your true self as possible.
Absolutely.
While I guess at the same time being a little bit more forgiving of yourself. You can't be 100% all the time.
Exactly.
in your organization, are most of these volunteers people that have also been through, somehow they've been touched by this disease?
There's only 2 on our committee who are actual survivors.
Okay.
The rest have never had breast cancer. There may be an aunt or a mom who did, that made them want to come and help. But there's 2 super special people on our committee who are also survivors.
Okay. And do you need volunteers? Is that something that...
When we put on our luncheon, it's huge.
Okay.
So we are always looking for someone who's talented in one way or another who wants to help. Sure.
So how would they, if someone wanted to volunteer, how would they do that?
They're on our website. There is a link that says if you want to volunteer or if you want to donate, and you can hit that link, and it'll get to one of the committee members.
Oh, fantastic. And for donations, where do those donations go to?
Well, we have partnered with another cancer foundation called Prevent Cancer.
Okay.
And it has been a fabulous relationship because the woman who started this foundation does grants for all types of cancers. Her name is Bo Aldeje, and they're out of Alexandria, Virginia. So what we do is every year we pick out one to co-grant with her, and then we try and do a local donation as well. For example, last year we donated $50,000 to Georgetown Hospital, and then we did the grant with Prevent Cancer.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so it makes us happy to have a partner to do things, because what they do is they actually have a team of doctors that grade all of the research grants that come in.
Okay.
And according to the grade on the grant is how they select which one that they want to support.
That's fantastic. And if somebody wanted to go to the luncheon in November, you're still not accepting currently? Are people registering? Or?
Not yet,
Okay.
because we haven't gotten the invitation out yet, but that will be soon.
But they could register to be on your
mailing list. Absolutely.
Okay. And what is the website?
It's www.livinginpink.com.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, if you have any show ideas or would like to be a volunteer guest, please feel free to email me at genxmarty@gmail.com. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on Making It Last.